All right. Now it says I'm probably on the air. This is the lag time. Oh, maybe now I'm actually on the air. I'll have to find out about that. But I believe I have found some video production in return for sponsorship. And this will look a lot better. I know I've been promising this for weeks and weeks, and I had a couple of people try, and their real life jobs, which, feeds their families, are much more important than fooling around with for me. So hopefully we're getting there. We're getting there. Sponsors, yes. World of Game Design, Dice Fanatics, Bards of Greyhawk, and I don't know what we're going to call the thing, but I'm going to send it to them. They're going to clip off the vegan stir at the beginning because I don't know exactly when this thing starts, and it'll look better. And so let's see. Tonight we'll start with hopefully the last time we deal with Steam. As I've said many, many times before, I'm not their first complainant, and I'm certainly not their biggest fan. However, to be fair, they installed a great big patch, apparently, and now it appears to be working the last few days. My question is this: why didn't you tell us you were patching it? That's all you had to do. Every one of us that turned into that game, you could have said, hey, if you're having a problem, we're sorry, we're trying to patch it, we know what's going on. Instead, you ignore us. Just leave us howling in the wilderness. It's not very good customer service. Hopefully, I won't have to talk about this anymore, despite the fact that I get things like, I've been in 12 years with no problems on Steam. Somebody stole your password and they have the habit of trying to resell your library of games onto somebody else. And why would anybody ever want to go on Steam? They don't even give you the games you pay for, like somebody named Big G, little O Big G does, which I don't know who sure that it was. So let's hope we don't have to talk about them anymore. My friends and I are back playing Scythe and having fun with it. A couple, 3 nights a week. We go on about 10:30 Eastern time. Game's over before midnight. All us old farts get to bed. Everything's good. All right, here we go tonight. The adventure I said that I was going to do a Kickstarter bet. Okay, first off, this adventure has already been published. Sort of, it has been published, but not all of it. We're going to use the Curse of the Weaver Queen. I put a whole bunch of stuff in the back of the Curse of the Weaver Queen for DMs to take and run with, and apparently it was overwhelming. So I'm going to go and chop off all that stuff at the back, finish off a different ending, take all the stuff in the back, and we're going to have something called, I don't know, working title, The Lady's Largesse. And so there'll be another whole adventure span where they can go back and by traveling around and finding the various components at the various temples, they'll be able to reverse the spell and release her. And of course, then she'll shower them with riches and fame and whatever. That's what we're planning on doing. There's going to be some dice and all manner of neat stuff with it. It'll be all new art. And everything that I have done was done for AD&D /1E. And it'll all be reskinned for 5E because 5E is the big selling. And they're going to write it for the OGL. And I don't care because my stories remain intact. I would like to, through Old Guard Games, the other thing that I'm getting together with Dice Fanatics and World of Game Design, I would like to make a website spot at some point where you can go back and find them and how to reskin them for the way I wrote them for the first edition of the original fantasy game. And, that way we can get around all that and you can have the way I wrote them. There's a bunch of them. So they'll all be skinned for that. It's also being sent to Brazil and being translated into Portuguese, just the first one, no big split or anything like that. So in Portuguese, I don't know how they're going to skin it as far as which edition. I just think it's cool somebody wants to read it in Portuguese. What's the largest game group I ever ran? 17, a couple of times. Extraordinary Circumstances. I was the one that brought it back to the game club. A lot of buzz. People were talking about it. And so a couple of times I had that many people show up. And yes, it's arduous and it's taxing as all get out. But there's a method you can use for overly large groups that can keep them all engaged and let them do some of the work for you. And that is scrap a whole lot of what you had planned and let them run with it. As an example, I had an adventure and I had 10 or 11 players in it. It was like a Sunday adventure at a con. And I didn't have anything written that somebody in this group hadn't already played that weekend. So I made it up on the fly. And the only thing that I told them was that they'd been hired to guard and they'd failed in their miserable attempts at guarding. And they had X number of hours to retrieve what they'd failed to safeguard. And off they went into my megalopolis, something along the size of the city-state of the Invincible Overlord that I've been working on. Started off on another game platform for years and years and years. And so I would say, you two, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I'd go around the group and they'd say, well, we're going to go look here. We're going to go look there. We're going to go do this. We're going to go do that. Right. And they're freewheeling. And this is where the adventure begins. And by the time you get around to the last couple over here, you can already start giving feedback to the ones in front of you. And the adventure evolves from there. They're terribly involved in it. They're doing most of your work for you. All you got to do is decide what they found out or what they didn't find out. And when they make an encounter, okay, we'll make an encounter. In this case, they found out that the Thieves Guild, which was run by these filthy little hobbits, had tunneled underneath the building, and the only place it wasn't safeguarded. And so by following the tunnel back in and then to the caravanserai, they spread out over the city seeking clues and eventually found them. And they did it all on their own, and they were all really involved in the game. And so when you find yourself stuck with a bunch, if you're running a game night at your game club or something at your library or whatever, that's the easiest way to do it. Wing it in a big city. Let them go. Let that city have any kind of section or thing you want. You can have sewers, whatever. You can have all sorts of fights, whatever. Okay, this one comes from way back. This is about a year ago or more. And it was kind of snotty, so I'm going to read most of it. Why do I need a poison saving throw when I dodge a poisoned arrow? Why might it take Arya a full week to recover her breath and her footing after dodging Brienne? Why do tricks that only work once on Brienne also not work on someone new who didn't see the first light and attack during Brienne's recovery? Several I just don't buy it. Hit points on industries, they're depleting stamina, trickery, and skill. Seems like a disingenuous post hoc rationalization. Bullshit. It's always been the rationalization. We have never been about hit location, chopping off arms, anything like that. Those rules never had anything like that. If you want to play Arya and Brienne, hey, that's your bag, buddy. Go find a Game of Thrones role-playing game. This is D&D, the first fantasy game. It's fantasy, it's swords and sandals and magic. And maidens in distress and fierce monsters and wicked orcs and goblins. And this is the way it works. If you want to go play a different system in a different world, hey, that's your right. And if you find fun doing it, bless you. All right, my question is, how do gaming conventions work from the regular attendees' perspective? Gary Con's going to be my first. I convinced a couple of my players to come along so you can demystify what we're doing. And okay, well, all right. I hope you're watching this now, because if you haven't registered for events, you better. If it's already open, if it isn't, you better pay attention. When event registration opens, have a schedule worked out in your mind. Go look on the website and try to get in all the ones you can. And in the ones you can't, go find something else in that time slot that you want to do. Don't do every one of your time slots. Don't book yourself solid. 4 hours of four games of 4 hours each will wear your butt out. I don't care if you're running or playing, it will wear your butt out. Allow yourself time for breaks. If you run a late night, if you run a game that run to midnight or later, don't start a game that plays at 8 or 9 or 10 on the next morning. Find something that starts at noon. Eat. 3 days before you go to the con, start taking something like Emergency and drinking lots of orange juice, and do it all the time you're there. And just, keep your defenses up, because whatever viri are floating around in any con, it becomes known as con crud, and you become susceptible to it. Make time for yourself during the hours that the vendors are open. Make sure you aren't playing games the whole time. Have time to look, go talk. Make yourself time to go meet people. Ken Easley, Larry Elmore, two of the nicest guys, nicest gentlemen you'll ever meet. Love to sign their work, talk about their stuff. Love hearing what it meant to you. Any of us that are there as guests are more than glad to give you a moment of our time, to sign something we did, to take a picture. Not necessarily time to hear about your last adventure, because we do a lot of things there too, and there's lots of people taking little pieces of our time, which I am glad to give a minute or two of my time to make somebody a memory, or just make them feel good. Thanks for the opportunity to do that for you. Rude behavior is not tolerated by anybody. And you'll find Gary Con is a very genteel, very well-behaved convention. Make sure that you have backups for if you didn't get that game at 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Which one did you get into? If you didn't get into that game of Scythe, well, were you able to get into the game of Power Grid, or whatever? I'm just using board games that I play. That's the best trick. If you already got lodging in the lodge, you did it right. Also the most expensive, but actually in terms of all, it's still the best because you're there. If you don't have rooms now, you're probably screwed. Most of the lodge starts filling up within a week after the Gary Con ends. People start, as soon as they open it up, they start making reservations as soon as they know the weekend of the next con. Allow yourself time. Allow yourself hydration. Don't dehydrate. It's real easy to dehydrate. And you end up with leg cramps waking you up in the middle of the night. Not fun. Not fun. Go there to have as much fun as you possibly can, but don't run yourself into the toilet or into the ground. I mean, good grief. You're there to have a good time. Have fun. That's what we're all there to do. We're all there to share that interest of ours and that fellowship that we all share. All right, that's enough of that. Next page. We have bigger print. I don't need my glasses so I don't get the flare-ups. Well, what does a silver badge or special event ticket get us? Well, some of the games are on a certain level. Silver, gold, bronze, I don't know. If you have a silver badge, you can get one. I think you're allowed or guaranteed a place in one game of that tier or more. Check the website. I know that's what it refers to, spots in that tier. I don't run the con. I just go to it. I support it. I consult with it, but I don't have anything to do with the nuts and bolts. Okay, now here's a real interesting one. He said, okay, here goes. Reading the Judges Guild First Fantasy campaign, I kept wondering why this content was not included in the Blackmore supplement. Reading Alarms and Excursions and other D&D themes from the 76, the chief complaint about Blackmore was a lack of content, though some note that it uses a narrower typeface, so it looks even slimmer than it is. You have mentioned a lack of content and the need to turn the others to content to fill the supplement out, but why was content that ended up in the First Fantasy campaign, why was that not included? About 68 pages. Was it considered? No. Who decided to leave it out? You, Gary, Dave? Do you know why? Circumstance. It didn't exist. First fantasy campaign did not exist at the time of Blackmore. I was given a one-peck fruit basket, the old style with the wooden slats that were woven together and the wire across on the table. And it was full of charts and tables and notes and half-type pages and stuff. And I was told, sort all this out. It's the next supplement. This is Dave's, and it's Blackmore. And he was extremely difficult to deal with. I couldn't get him to expand on stuff. He didn't feel it needed to be expanded upon. He was very haughty. So I had to piece together. I had to write bridge material. I had to expand stuff. I wrote about half the book I had to write. Thank God for the Sahagin from Steve Marsh, because he wrote all of that, and that filled up a big chunk of the book. The first fantasy campaign did not exist at that point in time. That is something that Dave cobbled together after he left TSR in a huff. Read a reprint of that original first printing and tell me that it didn't make your brain explode. There's a club in the game industry that some of us belong to. And that's all people that had to edit Dave's work. And if we're all honest, we'll tell you it was tough. He wrote that in a huff. He was going to go, compete with Gary. And of course, it fell on its face. And so then the lawsuit came up later. As far as reading Alarms and Excursions, they were radical. This to the game and trying to do that to the game. And Lord knows I've spoken enough about them in the past that we just tried to ignore them if we could. Once again, this place. Okay, let's talk about Gene. It says, can I talk about Gene Wells? I believe your time at TSR overlapped in part. She was the original Sage of Sage Advice, one of the early female TS employees as a designer, artist, or writer. And she was a female player in DM. Some ex-TSR folks have said that she didn't really know the game. For instance, Frank. And what's the real deal? I'm sure at some point I was introduced to Jean. Hello, this is Jean. She works for us now. Hello. Hi, I'm Tim. Nice to meet you. That's when she was hired. She was in another building entirely. She wasn't in my building. She didn't impinge my orbit. If she wasn't writing stuff under her own name, she didn't impinge. I had no contact, no interest. Or not even a disinterest, just no interest. Gary had been doing Sage Advice, I believe. Came in, she's going to start doing it. I looked at the first one, I said, this is Drek. She says, I know, make it better. No, I don't believe she knew the game all that well. I only say this because I'm asked. I have no personal animus toward Jane Wells. I don't believe at the time she knew the game that well. I don't believe she knew it well enough to be given the job she was given. As to what she drew, I don't know if she was an artist. As to what she designed, I have no idea. So I really can't answer because while we overlooked, you got to remember that my orbit was in the old gray building where it all began out of Gary's basement, and they were all down in the hobby shop. Certainly she was one of the earliest female players. Absolutely. How many games she ever DM'd, I have no idea. Okay, thanks again to my sponsors. Bars of Greyhawk, World of Game Design, Dice Fanatics. Some of you I'll be seeing in a couple of weeks, and TotalCon. Some more of you I'll be seeing a couple of weeks later. Let's see, what else do we have to go about tonight? Be kind to your fellow gamers. I hope your year started better than mine. Last night, I couldn't install the printer that was supposed to be easy peasy wireless. So I couldn't print my notes. And then my wire cable broke for my mouse. So I went out in the blizzard, and I hope it was worth waiting an extra day for. Until the next time,